Oh, you're here already. Well, let's get started. Tonight, we're going to be playing Pandemic, a cooperative game where you and your team of disease-fighting experts will do all you can to treat cases, contain outbreaks, and find the cure to 4 terrible diseases that are ravaging the globe. It'll be a race against many obstacles. Do you have what it takes to save humanity? Let's find out.
In this cooperative game, you have 5 character choices that you may choose from. The first one is the scientist, which allows you to only need 4 cards of the same color to discover a cure. The next character card you may choose from is the researcher, which allows you to give out player cards from your hand for 1 action per turn. Both of your pawns must be in the same city, but it doesn't matter which city you're in. The third character choice you may choose from is the dispatcher, which moves your fellow players' pawns on your turn as if they were your own. You may also move any pawn to another city containing a pawn for 1 action. The fourth character choice you may choose from is the operations expert. The operations expert allows you to build a research station in your current city for 1 action. The last character choice you may choose from is the medic, which removes all cubes of a single color when you treat a city. Also, when you discover a known disease, this card allows you to administer known cures for free when you go into a city.
This is the Pandemic board. It has many of the major cities throughout the globe indicated. Each city on the board is included in both the player card deck and the infection card deck. Whenever a city is drawn from the infection rate pile, 1 disease cube is added to that city. But say if the city drawn already has 3 cases of the disease present, an outbreak occurs. This means that 1 case of the disease is spread to all the cities adjacent to it, just like Chicago here. Whenever an outbreak occurs during the game, the indicator on the outbreak section is moved down 1. Over here is the cures section of the board. There are 4 cure tiles, and whenever a player succeeds in finding a cure, the indicator is moved down.
Like in many games, there is a way to win and many ways to lose. In Pandemic, there is only one way to win. That is by discovering all 4 cures. There are also 3 ways to lose the game. The first one is by getting the outbreak meter all the way down to the skull and crossbones at the bottom of the board. The second way of losing is by running out of player cards. And the final way of losing is by running out of disease cubes of 1 color to place on the board.
In each turn, you have 4 actions to use. There are many ways to spend those actions. One way is to move your pawn to an adjacent city connected by a red line. You can also discard a player card from your hand to fly to the city pictured on it. If you have the player card that represents the city your pawn is in, you can discard that card and fly to any city you want. For another action, you can build a research center by discarding the card representing the city your pawn is in. If you are in a city with a research center, you may fly to another city with a research center. If your pawn is in a city with a research center, you can discard 5 player cards of the same color to find a cure to a disease. You can also use an action to treat a case of the disease to remove a disease cube from a city. For the last possible action, you can give 1 of your player cards to another player as long as you are both in the same city of that card.
In the player card pile, the majority of the cards represent cities on the board, but there are some special cards throughout. There are 5 special event cards and up to 6 epidemic cards in the player card deck. Special event cards can be played whenever. They don't have to be played on your turn, and they also don't cost an action to play. The first special event card is Airlift. It allows you to move a pawn to another city. The Government Grant special event allows you to add a research station to any city for free. The Forecast card lets you examine the top 6 cards of the infection draw pile and put them back on top in any order. When One Quiet Night is played, the next player can skip the phase of a turn where you have to draw infection cards. If you play a resilient population, you can go through the infection card disc pile and remove one card for the rest of the game.
Special event cards are very helpful, but epidemic cards are also in the player card pile. When an epidemic card is drawn, the infection rate indicator gets moved up by 1. You also have to draw the card from the bottom of the infection draw pile and give that city 3 disease cubes. After that, you have to shuffle the infection cards in the discard pile and put them on top of the infection draw pile, and draw the number of cards the infection rate shows.
Once you begin playing, there are a few things you need to do to set up the board. You need to distribute the character role cards to each player either by letting them choose their own or by giving them out randomly. Next, you place a research center in Atlanta because that is where the Center for Disease Control is. That is also where all of the pawns start at the beginning of the game. Then, shuffle the player cards and deal them out. If you're playing with 4 players, you give each player 2 cards. If you're playing with 3 players, you give each player 3 cards. And if you're playing with 2, you give each player 4 cards. Next, choose your difficulty level. You can either play with 4, 5, or 6 epidemic cards. For your first game, I suggest you start with 4. Separate the player card deck into 4 piles and shuffle 1 epidemic card into each pile and then put the piles on top of each other. Now, shuffle the infection cards and place them back in the draw pile. Draw the first 3 cards from the infection draw pile and put 3 disease cubes on each of those cities. Now, draw another 3 cards and add 2 cubes to those cities. Lastly, draw the next 3 cards and add 1 cube to each of those cities. You are now ready to play Pandemic. The person who is most recently sick gets to take the first turn, and the rest of the order goes clockwise from there. Have fun!
We all have a lot of fun playing Pandemic.
We hope you do too.
It's definitely one of our favorite games.
Try not to kill everyone.